Press Secretary. Good evening to the citizens of Grenada. As promised, we continue to provide you with timely updates as to our preparations for Hurricane Beryl. You've heard clearly from the Met Office that it is a dangerous Category 4 hurricane. The hurricane will impact all of Grenada, not just the northern part, and so it's important for us to appreciate that. It is already impacting Barbados, and we expect that it will impact all of the Windward Islands and possibly other islands as well. This afternoon, Her Excellency the Governor General issued a proclamation that declared a public emergency for the whole of Grenada Carriacou and Petite, Martinique. In simple terms, it means a state of emergency has been declared. As a result of the declaration of this state of emergency, the following emergency powers will come into force effective as at 7 p.m. tonight, and they will expire at 6:59 p.m. on the 7th of July 2024. So first, let me repeat, the regulations governing the emergency powers are effective as of 7 p.m. tonight, and they will remain in force for at least 1 week and will expire at 6:59 p.m. on the 7th of July 2024. If, however, we do not suffer any major damage, or if by some miracle the storm misses Grenada, we naturally will end the state of emergency much earlier. At this time, however, there is no indication that Grenada will not bear the brunt of the effects of the storm, and so as a precautionary measure, the state of emergency will go in effect from tonight at 7 p.m. and remain for at least 7 days and will naturally expire at 6:59 p.m. on the 7th day of July 2024. The following restrictions therefore apply. Restriction 1, restriction on freedom of movement. As of today, the 30th of June 2024, and commencing at 7 p.m., persons will be subject to a curfew. That curfew will commence at 7 p.m. tonight and will end at 6:59 a.m. on the 2nd of July. Let me repeat, a national curfew is being imposed from 7 p.m. tonight and will expire on the 2nd of July at 6:59 a.m. unless further extended or unless brought to an earlier end. So there's a national curfew. You are expected to remain at home. You are expected to remain in your place of shelter if you are in a public shelter. No movement of persons will be tolerated. The following exceptions, however, may apply. And these exceptions are as follows: members of the Royal Grenada Police Force, members of His Majesty's Prison, that's the prison officers, members of the Department of Environmental Health Services, members of the waste disposal and sanitation companies, and when we say members here, we are referring to employees, employees and officers of the Airports Authority and the Grenada Ports Authority, employees of gas stations, employees of the government printery, and other essential officers who work with public utility companies, including water, electricity, electronic communication, and any persons who work in the electronic and or print media. All workers who fall under these categories are expected to have their identification with them at all times, so that if they are stopped by the security services, they can be properly identified. I will go over the list of persons who are exempt for clarity from the curfew. Again, members of the Royal Grenada Police Force are exempt. Any employees who work with the hospital or in the healthcare, medical, residential care facilities. Officers of His Majesty's Prison. Officers and employees of the Department of Environmental Health and Services. Employees of any waste disposal and sanitation companies. Employees and officers of the Airports Authority and the Grenada Ports Authority. Employees who work at any gas stations, employees who work at the government printery, other employees of public utility companies, including water, electricity, electronic communication, or print and electronic media. And I'm repeating that all such workers should carry their personal identification with them. To be clear, the following are not permitted during the period of the emergency regulations, and these include all religious and educational places of instruction or worship shall remain closed in the first instance during the period of the curfew, and that is from 7 p.m. tonight until 6:59 a.m. on the 2nd of July. So, all government departments except those listed above are also closed, and all private businesses except those listed above will also be closed. The regulations provide for penal sanctions should someone not comply with them. The emergency powers are being put in place for public health, public safety, safety of the citizens of Grenada, and safety of our nation. We appreciate that this will be a difficult time. It will be a trying time, but we need to ensure that we do all in our powers to minimize the presence of persons on our roadways or in public spaces during this time. While and when the storm passes over Grenada, even if your property is damaged, we are going to encourage you to find as much as is possible some safe haven within the spot that you are, whether it's your home, whether it's in a shelter, and remain there until NADMA gives the all clear. Particularly at night, it is not sensible to attempt to move during the hurricane. We should also indicate that when the eye is passing over, you may have a temporary period of calm, but it is likely that the winds and the rain will pick up again, and you may be caught if you attempt to move from one place or the other during the period of the hurricane. So we are going to urge you, as of tonight, to remain where you are until the hurricane passes and until NADMA gives the all clear. We will continue to provide you with updates. We expect that Grenada will begin to feel the effect of the hurricane certainly in the late night, early hours of the morning, and as been predicted, we expect that to happen for the remainder of the morning and for large parts of the day tomorrow. We will continue to provide you with timely updates, especially after briefings from the National Hurricane Center and after briefings from the Met Office and from NADMA. We urge you to use this time to spend some time with your loved ones, to appreciate them, to share with them, to play and pray with them, and to continue our preparations. Be mindful of the fact that there are sectors of our society that are vulnerable, as we already have reports that significant enough numbers of our citizens have heeded our advice and have moved into the shelters that are open. The team here at NADMA will do everything to support our district coordinators and deputy district coordinators and other volunteers who provide support to our shelters. I want to urge us all again to make sure we take as much precautions as necessary. A reminder that Nawasa will be turning off the water at 9 p.m. tonight, so you may have another hour and a half to fill up with anything that you can with water so that you have adequate supply, and at this time water is obviously quite essential. I will repeat that the electricity will remain on as long as it is safe to do so, so there is no plans to turn off the electricity unless it becomes dangerous to keep it on. Thank you very much, Press Secretary.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And once again, we are committed to sharing information as it becomes available and as often as possible. I believe we have one journalist online, Mr. Roberts from the diaspora. You can go ahead if you have any questions.
Okay, just a minute. Yes, I have three questions for you, Mr. Prime Minister. The first is, are you satisfied with all of the precautions and all of the information that you've been given has reached residents? And what is your assessment as the hurricane bears down? That's the first question. The second question, we in the New York diaspora are looking on, of course, our hearts and prayers with our loved one back home and with Grenada Carriacouans and Martinicans. What message do you have for us in the diaspora? And last but not least, the chapter, the NDC New York chapter is on organization mode. And we've mobilized our members, and we continue to mobilize the Grenadian community up here. So we would like very much, if it's quite possible, sir, tomorrow, that we in the chapter and know what is happening back home, if there are any needs and what we can do so that we can trigger our people to get involved in any sort of recovery help that is needed at that time. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the questions. But let me first start by saying the development of this hurricane has happened in record time. And as you can see, we are not yet in July. And within the first effective 29 days of the hurricane season, we have a major Category 4 hurricane that is likely to make landfall. And so the rapidity with which the hurricane developed, I think, would have surprised even most seasoned meteorological and weather experts. And so NADMA, I think, has given in the last 24 hours, this might be its 9th or 10th briefing. I believe this is the 9th meteorological update. So as fast as the information has come in, we've sought to provide that information to our citizens. The National Emergency Advisory Council met yesterday afternoon, and coming out of the meeting, very clear decisions were taken and communicated to the public. I appreciate that we have not had, since 2005, in July, we had a minor hurricane when compared to Hurricane Ivan the year before. So in a sense, the last time we've had a major storm, or certainly a hurricane, is 19 years. And despite all of the great work of NADMA and other agencies since Hurricane Ivan, the truth is, until it's happening, it's not happening. And so we appreciate that the public may not necessarily have appreciated the severity and the risk that the country is facing as a result of this. We will continue to do everything to send the message that this is to be taken seriously, that our citizens need to prepare, and they need to continue to listen to NADMA and the Met Office for official information. We believe that the citizens have begun to do so and are acting on the information that has been received, because as far as we can see, certainly the shelters are open and persons are actually moving into the shelters ahead of the storm reaching us. And I think that's a clear sign that the messages are being received and that people are acting to ensure that they can safeguard themselves and safeguard their families. And I want to commend persons who are doing so, because oftentimes we tend to wait and react after the fact. But the fact that people are being proactive, the fact that people are listening to what is happening, the fact that all of the shelters are open and that persons have begun to move into the shelters. We are getting reports from the district coordinators. They're giving us the numbers and the data, and that is coming in. So I certainly think our citizens are taking the hurricane seriously, appreciate that it is dangerous, and appreciate that they need to be prepared. But you could never be totally satisfied in circumstances where you have a dangerous Category 4 hurricane that has developed quite rapidly. For Grenadians in the diaspora, we will say to you, you can continue listening to the briefings. We will continue to provide information as soon as we have it in a timely manner. We are essentially in the state of having to ride the storm out. After we have done so, we will obviously do the necessary assessment. The assessment will tell us the extent of the damage and loss, if any, that we suffered, and then we would be in a position to know exactly what help we need. But I think, given what the Met Office has said to us, we are expecting storm surges that are dangerous. We are expecting significant rainfall. We are coming out of a severe dry season, And so we expect that with the significant rainfall, we are likely to see land slippage, and therefore with a Category 4 hurricane, there is a high probability that if we get a direct hit, that there will be significant damage to our housing stock, particularly our wooden homes. And so it is expected, therefore, that if that should happen from a relief perspective, obviously water, canned foods, tarpaulins, temporary housing, all of these things will immediately become a priority. We are working closely with our regional counterparts and our regional agencies. We've been in constant communication over the last several days. This is not just a storm affecting Grenada, it's a storm affecting from as far south as Trinidad and Tobago to far north as Barbados and beyond. So all of us are on high alert. We are all committed to sharing resources and helping each other. And there is another system that is following Beryl, and we are also paying close attention to that. So we are in the hurricane season. The experts all predicted that we are likely to have a hyperactive season, and thus far the predictions are bearing fruit. And so it's important for persons in the diaspora to appreciate that it's not just about this storm, but about the entire season. And therefore we may need, in a sense, to be in a state of having relief supplies and other essentials that we may need on an ongoing basis should this storm hit us and hit us directly. I hope I covered the 3 questions.
You did.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael.